Enhancing Language Development in Early Education, authored by Kathryn Marrington, Tiffany Noble, Dr. Annie McAuley, and Penny Markham. Language development is a crucial milestone in early childhood. Oral language forms the basis of literacy development, meaning that poor skills in early childhood can have significant consequences for literacy attainment, extending well beyond the childhood years. The National Assessment Program, Literacy and Numeracy, otherwise known as NAPLAN, an annual assessment for all children in years 3, 5, 7, and 9, is the only nationwide assessment undertaken by Australian children. The 2022 NAPLAN results have shown that reading levels among Australian 14 to 15-year-old boys have plummeted to record lows. The percentage of Year 9 boys achieving the national minimum standard in reading has fallen to its lowest level of 13.5%. In 2008, fewer than 8.5% had fallen behind. We know from decades of published research that some groups of children are literacy vulnerable, implying that they are at greater risk for reading difficulties due to some or all of the following circumstances: hearing impairment, parental history of reading challenges, reduced exposure to book reading and other literacy experiences at home and in the early learning settings, developing proficiency in spoken English, diagnosis of developmental language disorder, or a primary diagnosis or condition with which reading problems may co-occur, such as autism and/or ADHD. The long-term impact of COVID-19 is not yet known, but early indicators are that the pandemic will result in significant negative literacy outcomes. So to prevent or minimise the devastating impact of literacy challenges, we must intervene in the early years by providing all children with opportunities to develop robust language skills, the foundation of reading and writing in school and beyond.
This is the communication pyramid. Many speech pathologists all over the world use the pyramid to demonstrate how articulation and language are supported by and developed alongside other important skills. As this image shows, communication is complex and multifaceted. We need to provide children with the tools, interactions, and experiences to develop proficiency in all of these aspects of communication. The communication pyramid is not designed as a developmental model or milestone marker. Rather, it's a guide to the components related to communication. Brain development is dynamic and interconnected, where attention, listening, and speech all develop alongside each other, not first and last as the pyramid might suggest. In reality, the communication pyramid should look a little bit more like the circular diagram to the left of the slide. This version might not be quite as visually pleasing, but it does tell a more accurate story of that dynamic interplay between all components. Evidence from cognitive sciences suggests that the early relationships and experience impact the neurodevelopment of social and cognitive skills, which is why it is important to call out the foundation of the pyramid as a reminder that communication develops in the context of adult-to-child interactions. And the more refined and connected those adult-to-child interactions are, the better the communication outcomes can be. It follows that it is necessary to devote attention to the nature and circumstances of the time young children spend away from home. Australian children increasingly spend more time in early learning and long daycare settings. 46.7% of Australian children under 5 years of age attended approved childcare in the March quarter of 2021. The average weekly time spent in centre-based early learning was 31 hours per child, equating to approximately 3 days per week. It's imperative that these services provide environments that stimulate early children's language, particularly for children that are literacy vulnerable or at risk for poorer outcomes. I'm Tiffany Noble. I'm the National Manager of Speech Pathology at Goodstart Early Learning. And Goodstart Early Learning is a not-for-profit early education and care provider, the largest in Australia, who is committed to improving learning and development outcomes for all children, especially those children who are at risk for poorer outcomes or are experiencing vulnerability or facing disadvantage. So this particular collaboration and exploration with TalkiPlay was a real opportunity to explore how technology might play a role in really improving and enhancing children's communication outcomes based in early learning and long daycare settings through really attuned and connected adult to child interactions.
My name is Kathryn Marrington, and I'm a speech pathologist and the head of speech and language at TalkiPlay, a fun, screen-free technology for developing children's speech and language that was created by Dr. McAuley in Melbourne, Australia. TalkiPlay trialled an innovative approach towards improving the participation of literacy vulnerable children in language interactions in an early childhood education and care setting. Our intention was to empower educators to integrate technology across the curriculum to complement evidence-informed language stimulation practices, which were already embedded in the centres at Goodstart Early Learning. Trials were undertaken involving children aged 2 to 5 years in 2 Goodstart Early Learning centres located in lower socio-economic regions in Victoria, Australia. Goodstart Early Learning, as Tiffany said, is Australia's largest provider of early learning and care and Australia's largest non-government provider of preschool and kindergarten programs. During the trial, each centre's environment was purposefully altered using interactive talking stickers that were attached to objects around their rooms. Children engaged with the stickers to discover new words, sentences, and songs related to the objects, all while being supported by educators using evidence-informed, child-led play techniques. The stickers, used with a handheld electronic device, and games developed with specialists, were set up to intentionally foster encounters, encourage communication, and build relationships. The children were enabled to learn language while interacting with their physical environment. During the trial in 2019 with Goodstart Early Learning, educators reported using TalkiPlay with varying frequency, from twice weekly to monthly, and with all of the children in their room. Some also identified children that needed additional language practice. The majority of educators used TalkiPlay for an average of 15 to 30 minutes at a time. 9 educators participated in this study, and data was collected pre and post intervention using quantitative and qualitative measures. A longitudinal case study was completed to assess the engagement of literacy vulnerable children, particularly those from the following populations: children identified as autistic, children diagnosed with ADHD, and children from culturally and linguistically diverse backgrounds. Pre and post trial videos were taken at both centres in the 3-year-old and the 4-year-old rooms, as well as the toddler room at one centre. So these rooms comprise children aged between 2 years and 6 years of age. The findings at the conclusion of the trial were very encouraging. Educators reported that TalkiPlay had enhanced the communication strategies that were already in place. They reported that TalkiPlay sparked children's excitement and engagement, that the introduction of a technology-based experience provided interest and motivation for the children, that TalkiPlay could be used within established small group teaching and learning experiences, and that children engaged in tactile learning while also interacting with familiar everyday objects. Early childhood educators used purposeful play-based communication strategies with children, which saw them initiating increased verbal interactions with children, observing verbal and non-verbal cues that indicated the children's interests, responding to child interest with language development within the learning games, using extended expressive language when working with children in a group on a theme. For example, I wonder if the dinosaur is hiding behind or under the bucket. It also saw the educators facilitating inclusive language practice with children of differing language abilities. Several case studies provide additional insight into the trials and the outcomes. So let's start with Max. Max was 3 years old. His speech was difficult to understand, and he became frustrated when his message wasn't being understood. With his family, Max worked with a speech pathologist, and they advised his educators on how to intentionally and clearly model accurate speech sounds during all of the interactions to help Max to improve his speech. TalkiPlay was incorporated into Max's kindergarten programming and quickly became a favourite. He was immediately engaged when words and songs were generated by tapping the device on the stickers. Max was surprised and delighted actively seeking out educators to share in his delight. Max copied words spoken by the talkie player and was inspired to use other words. The repetitive, simplified language used in TalkiPlay games allowed present adults and peers to better understand Max's speech. The educators commented that TalkiPlay enabled important speech and language practice, where Max could take the lead without any expectation to talk. The educators in this case were intentionally working on speech sound articulation. However, by using TalkiPlay, they also established a warm, engaging adult-child interaction. They were harnessing his attention, they were helping him to tune in and listen, and then they were reinforcing his understanding of words that were clearly motivating and fun for him. And this is really important because it brings us right back to that communication pyramid, and we could see how this experience with TalkiPlay was encompassing so many different aspects of language learning. We were delighted to learn that an educator proposed using TalkiPlay to support peer interaction in small groups. With the support of a Goodstart speech pathologist who was involved in the trial, the educator selected a group of children who showed interest in TalkiPlay. The educator then explained to them how they could use the device to play the interactive games. The group began with 6 children, but quickly increased as other children were drawn to the experience and joined in. The educator scaffolded the interaction and supported the children to take turns and share the equipment, with many opportunities for them to listen to instructions, make comments, and ask questions. The educator reflected that one child, Alex, who was autistic, often found social interaction with peers challenging. But when TalkiPlay was introduced, Alex became interested in joining in the game and was much more confident to engage and communicate alongside and with the other children. The speech pathologist and educator observed that TalkiPlay sparked the interest of a wide variety of children at different developmental stages and provided truly inclusive opportunities for practicing receptive and expressive communication skills. So what does all this mean for children who we know are at increased risk of literacy challenges? We understand the correlation between oral language skills and literacy, and that children need experiences and interactions that are playful and language rich to set them up for reading, writing, and fulfilling lives. Technology is part of life in 2022, with all of its inherent risks from cybersecurity issues, ongoing debate about potential negative impact of screen time. There are still unparalleled opportunities for learning. Early childhood education and care centres can provide a springboard for physical, emotional, cognitive, and social development prior to starting school. This trial, in conjunction with Goodstart Early Learning, has demonstrated that we can further enhance early learning opportunities and build on established pedagogy and practice through the use of innovative technology. We have more knowledge and understanding of the reasons why children might be at risk, be more at risk than ever before. But thankfully, we also have governments committing to improving education and wellbeing outcomes for all children. Inclusion is a foundation stone for leaders of the future. Equity is what gives everyone a chance, and access helps build skills with tools that enable choice. To quote our founder, TalkiPlay is a small company, but our innovation is enormous, with potential to contribute significantly to inclusion, equity, access, and empowerment of young learners everywhere.